Meeting come to order, and it's about 11:35.
Yeah, good morning, board members, and thank you for being here, and good morning, staff. Today we're blessed with a large group of 41 folks from the camp, and we'll some awesome things to hear from later on. To start this morning off, I'd like to introduce Janice Hernandez. She's going to lead us in our invocation, followed by the pledge of allegiance.
Almighty God, may we bring reflection and wisdom to our meeting. May we use our expertise and our judgment, Lord, and direct our contributions. And may we always have in mind your will for the well-being and the future of our district. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, the first thing we have on the agenda is Southwest Legacy Alternative.
Yes, sir. This last month we brought this item to the board for approval. This is to upgrade a lab over at Legacy for the Ace Car Race lab that they do. We are going to upgrade some electrical there for some of their equipment, also some exhaust fans. We're actually using some Toyota grant money to do this, so this won't affect any of the local funds. But when we brought it, we expected it to be under $73,000. It actually came out to about $84,000, and so we're bringing it back just for transparency and letting the board know that there is more funds than what we asked for last month, and so we would seek that approval to move forward.
Did you just move some of the administration money over?
Well, fortunately, we got quite a few funds from Toyota on this grant, so we have some wiggle room there.
All right, do we have any questions?
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. All right, then we jump down to items of information and board training. No one has something to read here. The following board members have met or exceeded their continuing education program. Lo Burnell, Keith Byron, Mike Frazier, Yolanda Garza Lopez, Ida Sadaka, James Sullivan, and Sylvester Boston. We'll go ahead and get that in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, clerk.
You know what, you deserve a round of applause.
Yes, exactly.
All right, the next thing is the Southwest Literacy.
So thank you very much for having us, and I want to thank principals, teachers, the CNI staff for putting together what I'm going to call a formative kind of program evaluation for our board, as you were the ones who approved for us to support literacy at our K1-2 level. And so I wanted to take some time I know I only got 1 minute, right, Velia? Are you timing me? To share that we have changed kind of our mindset around what we need to see happening in our kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, so that we can support the on-grade level work of what needs to happen in 3 all the way through graduation. So I want to commend this team because they're the ones in the trenches doing the work. We have an honored guest, a young man by the name of Caleb. Caleb, here, you want to raise your hand here? He is a student at Southwest Elementary, and so he'll be speaking to you today as well. And so we have some very big changes and expectations of what's happening at those grade levels, to include not only what's happening with our literacy interventionists, but what's happening with our dyslexic teachers at 3, 4, 5, as well as to include the work that Dalila is doing with our assistant principals around writing. And so we're going to showcase some of that work today so that you can see kind of what your decisions and how they've impacted our kids directly, and to say thank you. And we're not asking for anything. We just want to show you what we have going. And so I would like to thank Renee, personally, Renee Munn, if you'll stand up and wave, please. Really, Renee is our literacy coordinator for the district, and Velia Terrasis, who is our director of bilingual. They have been extremely critical in ensuring that the departments within CNI are not working interdependently or independently, but rather they're working interdependently. I want to thank Melissa Vandercook for being here, who is actually our secondary math department lead coordinator for the district, because what we hope to showcase today is why we need to change what's happening in K-1-2 if we ever want to see a change in AP scores, even at the calculus AP level. And so they have a presentation for you today. Thank you all teachers for being here, interventionists as well, and thank you to CNI staff for putting together this and for doing the work. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Renee.
Thank you, Dr. Fay. On behalf of the literacy team, thank you for allowing us this time because we know you're very busy. As Dr. Fay was saying, we wanted to showcase some of the great work that's happening in the district when it comes around the pre-K to second grade level. And so to be able to do that, we have to take a moment to look to see where our data is as far as the district is concerned in the area of writing. So the STAR test is basically 3 passing levels. So the first passing level is approaches. So as you can see, we have their English, the students who took the English test and the students who took the Spanish test. At the top is English, at the bottom is Spanish. And the approaches level at TEA's definition is that they are approaching grade level. And so we have about 60% and about at the English level, and about 62% of our students at taking the Spanish test are passing at the approaches level. As a district, we have made a decision that we're not going to look at the approaches level, that we want to look at the meets and the master's level. And the reason behind that is that the meets level has to do where that's the percentage of students that are on grade level. And so if you look at our scores again, all students taking the English test, about 27% of them are passing at grade level. With the Spanish test, we have about 29%. When we have the master's part of it, that's the part that the state feels that when a child is able to get a master's level, so with the English, that's about 6%, and with the Spanish, that's about 16%. Those are the students that are college, career, and military ready when they leave our system. And so because of that, you can see that there are gaps, and we're not where we want our students to be. And so that's why these initiatives that we're going to talk about today revolve around pre-K to second grade, and that because that's where the foundation is. And we have to start with that foundation so that our students do have the capability of getting to that meets and master's level when they get to the 4th grade. So, yes, ma'am. This is last year's this was last year's 4th graders, so this is the last data that we have with the 4th grade test. So these are our current 5th graders, because we take the test in May. Okay. Yes, yeah. But with our work, because we're really focusing on pre-K to second grade and building that foundation, that's why I wanted to show the first test that they take is in 4th grade. Okay, so are there any other questions? I'm going to pass everything off to then Vicki.
So speaking to what Dr. Fay and Bonnie were talking about as far as our data and where our kids are right now, looking at 27% meets in English, 29% meets in Spanish, the literacy initiatives are targeted towards K through 2nd. And so what I just wanted to update you on what we're doing right now, the work that we're doing with the writing initiative. And what we are, we are collecting writing samples weekly from our 1st graders. We want to really build the foundation at our early grades before writing's not just in 4th grade, right? And it starts at pre-K. And so we collect writing from them weekly. We started with training our assistant principals at the campus level. They're charged with helping us with this initiative. And as we got in these samples every week, we started analyzing them and looking at the trends and looking at patterns across the district, and that's why we decided to train our 1st grade teachers in the writing process. And so what you see here is the same student, beginning of the year, 1st week in September, and now that's the same student in November, the end of November. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Just like in a little quick nutshell, what is your training on this
we train them with aligning their writing instruction to the TEKS, the first grade writing process. So our teachers, our first grade teachers have the writing process as part of their state TEKS. And so we kind of help them through how to guide your students through that process, which is actually what Ms. Yada and Mr. Caleb here are going to talk to you about. And so if you guys want, that's perfect and they'll kind of share with you some experiences that they're having along with this writing initiative.
Good morning, everyone. I am Yada Shutter, and I teach first grade. I'd like to briefly explain what the writing process looks like in its beginning stages at Southwest Elementary. So I figured it could be best demonstrated by one of my first graders. So I brought with me Caleb Reyna. He brought some writing samples, some of the samples you're seeing right now, and I can explain to you how the writing process looks like in the classroom. What does it look like? What does it sound like? Is you ready for that? Okay. You want to say hi to people with us? Hi. Okay. So, Caleb, when we talk about the writing process in the class, how does that look? Beautiful. Beautiful. So now, I want you to tell us, we want for our audience, because maybe some of them don't know what the writing process is. Okay? So, can you tell me what is the first step of the writing process? Pre-writing. So when we think about pre-writing, what does that mean? Okay. Very good. Wonderful. So then we move into the second step. What is that? Draft. And when you tell me draft, what does that mean? Because they don't know. That's what it means. We write. We write a story. Now I'm going to ask you one more thing. So where did you get this information from? Oh. Very good. Wonderful. So now we have our draft. We put all the information on our paper. Now, what's the next step? Revise. Oh, we have to revise. And what does that mean? Very, very good. So now we have a good piece of paper with good information. What's the next step? Edit. What is that? Very good. You have to fix those mistakes, right? That's what Michelle said. And then what did you do? What did you do? Oh, and when you talk to me, what does that look like? What did you do? I'm trying to make that right now. Clean. Okay. And then here comes the last step. But what is that? Publish. What does that mean? Okay. No mistakes. Very good. So now, everyone, we have a good piece of paper with a good writing, no mistakes. And the last thing we need to do is what? Sign it. Why is that?
Because it's your own work.
Very good. It's yours. It's very important. Yes, it's important. Thank you, everyone.
And so what Ms. Shutter does in her classroom is amazing and wonderful, and that's what we wanted to share with all first grade teachers. And so that's pretty much basically everything that Caleb summed up for us is what we did in that writing process training. And so that second page that you have in your handout is Caleb's beginning of the year. That's what he wrote at the very first week of school, second week of school. And right on the back of that second page is what he has written recently. Yes, and Yada wants me to let you know Caleb did write a page and a half. There's another half page to that second piece. Yes.
This is his writing, and he is very proud of his work, so he signed it at the end.
Good job, Caleb.
Good job.
Yes, ma'am.
So, of course, you know Ms. Shutter.
Mm-hmm.
Stellar. We have other teachers that are not so stellar. And so, someone said but what are we doing to get that excitement
Mm-hmm.
super ready, right?
Mhm.
But we have a lot of people. So are we allowing other teachers to teach her and not just train them how to do her, but like maybe we could let her go into the other classes maybe and so that they could see the excitement that, well, they could see the excitement that the young man has versus the ones that are at home trying to, they don't
Right.
have the advantage of being in a shuttered class or a graded class, or, you know what I mean?
Exact.
Or maybe
No.
larger class.
Yes, exactly. And so that's the work that we're going towards is showing them these samples, showing them this was the beginning of the year. And just real quickly, you have a little scorecard at the top. The teacher thought that was print awareness. And so through the training and through the collections and through Bonnie and me and Renee, the whole literacy team monitoring this work, now the teacher sees this writing and that's really print awareness. So just kind of helping them shift their mindset around what kids can do, what they're capable of. And so we share these samples with them. And so
But not
that's,
so much this, though. I mean that.
yes,
I mean
utilizing.
because it's different. If I'm a teacher and like, can you show me what another teacher is like? Probably I'm gonna go,
Right.
versus seeing that. When you bring it to life, then you're like, oh, maybe my kids can be that excited too. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I would like to address that actually, and I think that's the value of having Dalila in her current role is that there is an expectation currently with not the principal necessarily, but bringing our assistant principals into the work of curriculum and instruction. So the assistant principals on their respective campuses are the ones that are charged with completing this work. And there was a little bit of hesitation or challenge at the beginning when we were requiring all campuses to turning a writing sample from a first grade student every week. But since then, every student has turned in 14 writing samples that comes and gets calibrated by curriculum and instruction and then taken back out with training so that we know where the hot spots are, where we have campuses that have weak spots and things like that. And so we're going to highlight in this setting some of our better work, but we have across the first grade lots of examples of student work that look like this, Ms. Sadolkin, that is now looking like this. And so the idea is that we raise the system expectation, and that includes not only raising the rigor of what happens in our classrooms, but raising the rigor of how do we get our campus leadership to support and engage in raising rigor in our classrooms. Because I don't have 17 Vickies, right, to be at every campus and 37 classrooms every day, but I do have at least one teacher at every campus that will own the process for us and help cross-train. And now we have Dalila driving the work with current administration, which is very different than what we've expected from our campuses in the past. And so I would encourage you, if you would like, we can invite you to one of those calibration meetings, which happens every Friday or Monday, and see the level of work. So it's not just changing for this one student, but it is changing across the board for every student. And I agree that if we could get every student excited about writing, like in Ms. Shutter's classroom, that would be the ideal, and that's what we're working towards. I would lie if I said we have it, because you know that we don't, but that is our goal, is that every first grade student is engaged and they're excited about writing. To the degree that we feel pretty comfortable that it's happening more so than not across first grade, and I think after the semester we're actually taking this process to grade 2. Because it's been a really enlightening experience, not only for our students and our teachers, but to see where, okay, we're here, now C and I can continue to drive the work up so that our kids, when they get to 3rd grade next year and then 4th grade the following year, are actually a little bit more prepared, and we don't have our 4th grade teachers pulling out their hair around it. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I just want to, like what Lloyd did in one of our schools, suffering artifacts, parent stuff. And he put big star pictures in it, and other teachers were able to see how that teacher was teaching it. It's much better than sending you to training. You know what I mean? It's good to train, but if you can see somebody doing it successfully, then you know it can be done. It's just on paper doesn't mean
our large emphasis in first grade this year, we're also gonna take it to the structure that you will see in the Shutter class. And so we've been doing some first grade snapshots of walkthroughs of what is the success of this classroom in order for us to replicate that structure. And then that specific of, is it the environment, is it the classroom? So we have been noticing that there's a lot of direct teaching where the teacher's doing most of the work. But you walk into this Shutters class and you'll see stations, you'll see sectors. So that's the next step of training. We're going to be pulling our first grade teachers in order for them to go through the theory. But based on the theory, the pedagogy of the how, we're going to also do what does it look like. And so with what you're sharing is we can easily fix that. We do have academic coaches and they're part of the walkthroughs. And so they're noticing the greatnesses, the great things that are happening in their campus where they can just look at that with walkthroughs and setting up those peer observations that are very valuable. And we can also videotape. So right now what we're going through is our high expectations and setting those expectations really high and then showing the teachers that through our constant feedback every week is we are giving them feedback of you're still not on the rating. Why is it that there are no punctuation, not complete sentences? So we're looking at all those trends and then coming up with a PD that is what I call on time. You know, we're giving them on time feedback, weekly basis, and then on time PD in order for us to be able to close those gaps. So we have been noticing, but we're noticing them in 34th, but what are we doing with the lower grades to prepare for those gaps and close them quickly? So it's definitely a work that is revolving, and you know, we do appreciate your feedback, because exactly what you said, when you see it, you can better grasp. So we're looking at, so now the celebration is that initially in first grade, we weren't getting the feedback of, you know, why are we forcing our students to write every week? Well, now that we're celebrating the writing, and also by looking at, we're not gonna stop our first grade, we're gonna go down to pre-K, because if our neighboring other school districts can come up and say, if you send them to me, they're gonna be ready to read and write by the time they leave pre-K. So then what are we doing in our end? So we wanna be able to just make those high expectations for every single grade level. And before they go to third grade, we wanna make sure that our students are reading on grade level. So we are not happy with having 54% of our students at first grade coming out on grade level. 54% were already failing. So we wanna make sure that we're closing those gaps, and the only way we can do that is by reading and writing. So the evidence of them being reading on grade level is the writing part. There we can clearly see that they do know their fluency words. They are putting those sounds together, and so the writing is a clear evidence of that. So with that, we are measuring is Saxon working, which we spend a lot of money and a lot of effort and a lot of PD into it. So now we're seeing evidence that we're celebrating that too. So we can easily go back, even with Saxon, we paid for it, we did PD on it, but what does it look like? And now we're seeing this is what it looks like. But we can definitely do videotapes and turn that around to the academic coaches, because we have a lot of support in the campuses right now, thanks to you all. And so we're gonna continue celebrating and working with it.
And I do want to say, I mean, I'm impressed. It's been on.
Yes.
I had a question too, just real quick. So this, basically these samples that y'all are getting are your follow-up piece. And you address it individually per teacher, you address it grade level, do you address it campus level? How does it get addressed?
So every teacher has to submit all of her classes, all of her homeroom class. So there are 20 kids, every single student has to submit a writing sample. But in the process that we included was we trained the assistant principal, and the teachers have already been trained by this point.
Yes.
So now is the calibration. You should not be telling me that you're a print awareness where, you know, now we're seeing that difference that Vicki was talking about. Now they understand what print awareness means. Print awareness is you developing more than 2 sentences, just not a letter.
Right.
And here we're looking at, you know, just a ramble. You know, at the beginning of the school year, you'll probably see them just putting up letters or maybe just their names. But now we're seeing they're completing sentences and making those connections. And so that was part of the training of, in the campus, they have the classroom teacher, the assistant principal, and the academic coach that was also trained. So there's a team at the campus that is able to calibrate. Then we send those over through the coding.
Yeah.
We send them over to central office, to our offices. And on Mondays, we sit down and we calibrate as a team.
Okay.
So we are reading what the teacher said and her comments at the bottom. And if we agree with her comments and their details, then we go ahead and initial. If we don't, we get the little paper, the
Okay.
rubric, and we put there, well, it is not for the awareness, and you missed this.
Per teacher.
Per teacher, yes.
Wow,
And so
okay.
it's been
A lot of work.
celebration because it's a lot of work, yes. But we can also see the fruit of our labor.
Sure.
Because now the teachers, even when we've been in POC, they're like, really? So you've been reading every single paper? Well, now they're getting the feedback that we've been business not only the first week of school,
Right.
but we're now at coming towards the second semester, we're gonna continue with our rotation.
So are the teachers aware of the percentages that meet and master Do they know those numbers individually as a classroom and as a school?
What the school has been challenged with is we submitted with a Title I grant that we are committed to 65% of our students being reading on grade level in first grade. So we've been
So
following
meets.
well, this is now iStation because in first grade you don't have approaches, needs, or masters.
Okay,
But now we're following iStation. And if
Okay.
they're reading on grade level, then when we get to third grade, that we should no longer be performing in those levels because the students are going to be reading on grade level. But by looking at our current present, which is 54% of our first graders are reading on grade level, then it should be to no surprise of why we're getting those results in third grade. So we really want to push that, to meets and masters, and the only way we can do that is students need to be reading on grade level. And there's no magic to it, but it's just.
so you gave them a goal of 65%, they're at 54, and you gave them a goal of 65 for
Right, and
this year.
Yes, and the beauty of it is that principals themselves have taken that goal and say, you know what, I'm not going to go for 65, I'm going to
Yeah.
go for 80, I'm going to
Okay.
shoot for 70. So, of course, we would like to shoot for every single student reading on grade level, we definitely want that. But in the end, we're also being realistic with the work of what supports are we putting in place and what expectations are we putting in place in order for that to happen.
And does the iStation give them feedback on that percentage constantly, or do they have to wait at the end, or?
No, this is
iStations.
like constant, once a month, and they.
So they know if they're moving up, and they know if
Yes.
they're going down, they know what's
Yes.
happening.
And so there's, the students are placed by, here we see approaches, needs, and masters. iStation has it by tier 3,
Mhm.
would be your, more challenging students,
Yes.
your tier 2 that are developing, and your tier 1 that are grade level.
Okay.
So our goal is tier 1, 65%, that's what we told the state, because last year we were 54. So we really want to just push that needle, and this is just one more evidence.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And so our next steps, real quickly, our next steps is moving into second grade. And so we're gonna do the same thing. We noticed with first grade, we were completely uncalibrated, and now we are. Now we are, and this is an example across the district. This really does represent an example of across the district. And so now we're going into second grade. And so we've done 2 weeks of second grade, and it's the same thing. We're noticing that they're getting 2s and 3s and 4s to writing that is not at that level yet. And so that's why our focus now is the lower grades, because last year, this is one of our 8s or 4s perfect score on writing, and we had 6 out of over 1,000 fourth graders in our district. We only had 6. And so that's where, speaking to Dalila, we really want to move that needle. And to move that needle, we have to build the foundation at the early grades. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then what grade is that?
Fourth grade.
So I'm going to sort of transition us,
By the way, I can't do that good.
so I'm going to sort of transition us to AP tests. And when you think about math and science AP tests, you don't think about writing, and writing being an important critical skill that students need in order to score 3, 4s, and 5s on an AP test. So I have some samples because I want to point out some very key things that's affecting student works. These are not our students. These are just samples that College Board has released. But there's some key things that I think through writing is going to help support our kids once they get to high school in earning 3, 4s, and 5s, because it's not just about the math or the physics. If I can't justify and explain and use contextual evidence within that problem, then I'm also going to be taking off points off of my calculus AP test or my physics AP test. And so the first one I want to kind of point out to you is it's really one word, and this poor child, because of one word, he got a point taken off. And a point doesn't seem like a lot, but for an AP test, every point is so significant. And so on this first sample that's labeled 3, if you look at page 9, the second page, you'll notice that within that, let me make sure I have the right one. Page 8. Is that the right one? Yes. He uses the word dollars in his explanation. It's a really short explanation, but it's to the point, but he uses the word dollars. Okay? The word dollars is important in that explanation. If you go to the very last child in that example, same question, so 3B, it should be page 3 of 5 at the bottom. It says 3C at the top. He uses the word price. And so I'm still on the same person, so it's 3C, it's labeled at the top. Problem 3B, he uses the word price instead of the word dollars. He got 1 point taken off because he used the word price instead of the word dollars. And so that's significant when you think about the entirety of this problem was worth 9 points. So you got a whole point taken off for one word. And so when we're talking about writing and making sure that we're using good words and that we're being, our explanations are clear and precise, that one word cost this child 1 point on his AP test. Okay. I brought a sample, which is a physics, and it's really because of the sheer nature of the amount of writing that was in the difference between scoring all 7 points and only scoring 2 points. And so you can see that this first child, the amount of writing that they did is significant, versus if you flip to the very last child, the amount of writing is minimal. And in fact, they even make a point in the grading rubric to point out how the student is using logical, relevant, and internally consistent arguments. So they're writing about how the students are justifying their work in those problems. Okay, so I just want to point out, and then I have a third example as well, where you can see the amount of writing, and that when they're grading this, they are taking off for did not support the answer of an overestimate of a valid reason. So within the AP writing for calculus and statistics and physics and government, if we don't have strong writers, it's going to affect those scores for those other content areas.
So right now, you would say that we have, that our children that are mathematicians, it's not that they're lacking in the mathematical piece, it's that they're lacking in the written piece.
Right.
And that's why we're not.
That could be one element of why. I could be the strongest mathematician, but if I can't justify and explain and use that evidence in my argument, then I'm going to miss points somewhere. And so being able to write across contents, being able to justify within the context of the problem and support my evidence, not just in math and science, but also in social studies, and of course as in English. But yeah, that's an important skill that our kids are missing. And part of it is because they lack there's gaps in their literacy for writing. So, any other questions?
Hi, good afternoon. So one of the things that we did this year that you guys blessed us with was that hiring a bilingual LSSP or school psychologist who is now providing all of our dyslexia evaluations across the district. Mary Lou Hernandez, she wasn't able to be with us today, but she has over 17 years experience with the district in the special education side. And so bringing her over to the dyslexia side with her knowledge in language and language acquisition has been very helpful in us identifying students who may be dyslexic and providing appropriate services for them. So I did want to recognize the value of her work and what she's done for our department. The second piece is our literacy interventionist, our K through 2nd interventionist, which we have at every campus. I spent a little over 40 hours, PD hours with them, training them on language enrichment and some very systematic literacy interventions that encompassed all the basic reading, writing, all the pre-literacy skills before you begin reading, and then of course language and vocabulary development. So I have a little video that they created together to kind of give you an idea of what their day looks like. There we go. There is, it's very light. But a little bit of a delay. The sound's up all the way though.
All right, here we go. First word, open or close? Close. The vowel is short. Code it with the read. Ready? Read. Pig. Very good. The second word, open or close? Close. The vowel is
A base word is a plain word with nothing added to it.
that says sap. Make it say sip.
actually love reading because you could read stuff so you wouldn't be lost and you could read instructions.
All right, boys, sing the song so you know it's correct. Go.
A, B,
C, D,
E, F, G,
H, I, J, K, L.
Tete tiene un pato. El pato tiene alas. Las alas tienen plumas. El pato
So I'd love for our literacy interventionists just stand up where they're at and just, if you don't mind, give them a round of applause for all their hard work.
That was me singing in the background. Good afternoon, and thank you, Board, for allowing us to come and provide you with this update. So on behalf of the biliteracy part, last year we came to the Board and you all approved a budget for us to bring in a teaching for biliteracy training over the next 3 years with our elementary campuses. And so we started our work with our first cohort this year, which is pre-K, kinder, and first, and you saw some of that work that's happening already. Crosswise, as far as with the interventionists as well. It's also going to be happening with the academic coaches. We're going to be training them, I believe it's next week, along with the literacy interventionists, and some of the dyslexia interventionists have already been trained on it as well. So the majority of the students that are identified as English language learners at Southwest ISD enter school with 2 sets of linguistic skills. Approximately 97% of those students identify Spanish as their other language when spoken mostly in the home or as the student's first language. Previous bilingual late exit and early exit models are designed to transition students to all English instruction, but the dual language model that we have adopted at Southwest ISD strives to create bilingual, biliterate, and bicultural students. With your, when you approved the teaching for biliteracy training last year, since then we have been able to train the first cohort of teachers in grades pre-K through first and provide them with the strategies and the skills to be able to build on students' both sets of linguistic skills, so they don't have to lose their native language. And so that way the connection between what Ms. Melissa Vandercook was saying about the AP exams, we have the majority of our students who are scoring 3, 4s, and 5s on the Spanish AP exams. The majority of them are coming out of that Spanish AP exam. So to get 3s are pretty, you know, they're okay, but to get 4s and 5s, it's very rare. So when you see those scores coming in 3s, 4s, and 5s, the majority of them are coming from Spanish AP. And what you'll notice is that the writing in that exam as well is very rigorous. So for us to transition them all to English and then to try to put them back into Spanish courses or on that track once they get into middle school and then high school, it's kind of the opposite of what we're trying to work towards, right? We're trying to put them onto that higher level of courses once they leave elementary. So what we're doing with the teaching for biliteracy piece, next year we'll be starting our second cohort, which is going to go into 2nd and 3rd, and then the final year will be 4th and 5th, and then after that we'll come back to the board to see what our decision is going to be to take it into the middle school level. But we want to go ahead and thank you, and most of all, we want to go ahead and honor, we have 2 of our bilingual teachers here today. We have Ms. Ana Villarreal from Bob Hope Elementary, who teaches kindergarten, and we have Ms. Gloria Carejo here from 1st grade at Elm Creek Elementary, because we can provide them with all the PD and training and theory and research that we want, but it's not until they actually go back and put it into practice in their classroom that we start to see the changes. So with the writing as well, we've started to see where our students are writing in English proficiently, and they're writing in English, Spanish, and in English proficiently. So we're able to see that. We're also able to see that with their iStation data as well, how they're coming along in both languages. So before I show you the teaching for biliteracy video that we put together, I know some of you have had the opportunity to see that already at our Sun Valley elementary event that we had there. I'm going to just go ahead and see if they want to just maybe share a few words as to what they've experienced with the training, if it's helped them in any way, if it's benefited them in any way.
For my classroom, I have kinder,
Ms. Vian?
And I experienced the same thing. I am teaching all my morning in Spanish, and then I teach all my afternoon in English. And I am one of the success writers. My classes. My class is writing proficiently in English and in Spanish. And again, it comes from that effort of, again, I have a green star. And they're very, very aware of it. And when I'm wearing the green scarf, that means it's time for Spanish. And when I'm not wearing it, I talk to them in Spanish. They're like, no. Where's your scarf? No scarf, no Spanish. And so they kind of hold us accountable for that. But one of the other things that has proven very successful is that at the end of every unit, we do what is called bridging. And so the lesson, I taught all my math lesson in Spanish, but then I give them all the English words, or they provide the English words. I never taught them to them in English, granted. They've been picking them up as they hear when we're doing English here or there, and I'll say, okay, does anybody know how to say sumar? And it's in English, and they'll just say, oh, it's Addie. And so we make those little posters that have both the English and Spanish, and it's just being faithful and doing it with fidelity. And I think that that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that was made across the thinking for the writing. If we just take it and accept it. I remember the TV last summer, Dr. Bushlev said, get on the horse. And so we have to be under that philosophy that we are here for the children, and they are learning both languages. I'm glad to say that I'm almost at 90% in English as well as in Spanish in my high station. But it's going to take time. It's going to take time, but it's also very rewarding work.
It is. Thank you, Ms. Garejo. So again, it's not going to matter any unless we have our teachers who actually put these things into practice. And I just want to highlight, if I could, I'd have all those teachers here, but I was only able to bring 2 today. But here's some. You want to stop it? Okay,
My name is Dante Cortez, and I am a proud bilingual student at...
I would really like to get in Ms. Schweitzer, who is joining us today, and so we can show you all that video later. Some of you have already seen that.
Yeah, we've seen
But I hate to do that, but I really want to get in the work of our dyslexia program.
Good afternoon, I'm Will Baker, RTI Director. 2 years ago, with the help of senior staff and the board, we were able to ask 2 principals that they would let us train 2 teachers in the Scottish Rite Take Flight program for teaching dyslexic students, Rosie Hidalgo being one of them, who was gracious enough to let us do that. And so we have trained those 2 teachers, and it's a 2-year training, and so they haven't completed it yet. But the other day I got a phone call from another district who's been doing Take Flight for years, and they said, hey, Mr. Baker, we saw one of your teachers on a video that was used to train our teachers on how to do what they do even better. And I was like, really? Which teacher was that? And they said, well, Lonnie Schweitzer. And I was like, she hasn't even finished the program. And they said, well, she just does this teaching so well that they're currently using her as an example for how to teach the program. So that's tremendously exciting for us. Lonnie's done a great job, and we wanted to recognize her.
So, Ms. Schweitzer, we have on behalf of CNI and our department, we have a plaque for you so that you can display proudly all the hard work that you do and how much you mean to our district and, of course, your campus.
Where do I begin? I mean, first of all, I just...
1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute. I got it. First of all, I just want to thank everyone here who has given me the opportunity to participate in the program. Anybody who approved it, Ms. Hidalgo for supporting it and letting me fully implement it, and of course Renee Munn for bringing it. I mean, it's been great. Our students are making huge, massive gains, and the training is phenomenal. It is like nothing I've ever gone through. I have a master's in literacy, and I'm now doing this, and there's a very distinct difference in the 2 types of trainings and the approaches to teaching reading. So the training that I've received through Scottish Rite has taught me how to teach reading in a different way, look at the reader as I don't want to say medical standpoint, but you're really digging down into the brain and why it is that they're having the difficulties, and you're learning therapy techniques to go ahead and retrain their brain and almost rewire the way that they're thinking, and so that they can learn it to the best of their ability. It's really amazing. I mean, I wish more teachers could go through it. I hope that they get a chance to, because it's like nothing I've ever experienced. It's really great. Thank you. Can I just share one? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I just want to share one. I have a lot of great success stories, but I've got one little kiddo who last year he went into 3rd grade as a non-reader. His kinder teacher, first grade teacher, second grade teacher all worked as hard as they could, but they just couldn't get through to him. And he went into 3rd grade reading 8 words per minute, and that was probably mostly sight words. He was unable to read at all. By the end of 3rd grade, he passed the STAR test. And he's now in 4th grade, he's reading about 50, 60 words per minute, you know, which is huge gains compared to what he was. So it really is, the therapy sessions that I provide, it's a way to unlock the brain and force the learning. It's really amazing.
So a lot jam-packed in. Thank y'all for listening and giving us the extra time. Sorry after the.
No, I really appreciate your time and you guys coming over and explaining a lot of the great successes and expectations and focus on the lower house and everything that's happening. You know, there's 6 words that every division leader or superintendent likes to be able to say. It's like, wait for me, I'm your leader. You guys really demonstrate that you are moving, you're blazing opportunities and pathways for students that I don't think were ever available. And I love the idea of the questions from our board about how we build capacity. I love the fact our board is really engaged in the CNI meetings that you guys do monthly, a lot of information. So kudos to you. I mean, if we get it right as adults, our kids get to live better lives. And so you guys are great at that. I'm really proud of seeing you guys.
Thank you.
This is very impressive, what y'all have presented, and very exciting, and very proud. I'm very proud to hear this. I just wanted to have one thing to think y'all to think about, and that is that every year you have a new group of young, very excited teachers come, and they've just spent 4 years learning something, and they really want to teach it, and they're going to need to be taught what you want. And so many times these programs over time, when you get put on other things, the newest thing, sometimes that training sometimes doesn't have the same intensity that it does right now when you're implementing. And I'm just suggesting that you consider that when you plan your programs. How do we make sure that the new teachers get this, not just next year, but 2, 3, 4 years from now?
And thank you for that comment, and I've addressed this with my team, is that the truly great, kind of trend researchers in education will tell you that you don't need a new initiative every year to get it right.
Yeah.
And if we get this thing right, we get everything right down the road.
Yeah.
And that's why I included AP Calculus, because while it's not about math, it is about the work that we're doing for the total child. It's about the kid who read 8 words a minute and now reading 60. It's about the work that we are doing across the level, because we don't have a YADA in every classroom, but we should have systems in place that ensure that at bare minimum, we are meeting our kids at the level where they are and growing them. And that's our, at least as long as I get to work here, I hope, is that will be our focus. Because if we change that, we change the world and the lives that they lead when they leave us. And so that's very important to us. And I want to thank the C&I department, because I think it's the first time that they've actually cross-department work, and they're all in it to win it for our kids, and that's a beautiful thing. So thank you.
Taking our efforts on the classroom and putting in leadership positions really baked in our school district, and will for a long time. I have one more comment. I would like to adopt Kayla.
Yeah. He's so smart.
Did a great job here today.
Thank you.
I love you.
Anybody else have anything? If not, I'll give you all the opportunity to go ahead and step
guys
very
for
much.
being, thank you.
Great job.
Adorable. He nailed it. Otherwise, I might not be able to get into another computer.
Oh, yeah.
Do I?
She's confident enough to be leading on the videos. She's not even finished the training. Yeah. That tells us.
That was impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they just scratched the surface of other things going on, and there's always been a focus that we went to, but there's never been a focus with the expectations.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the difference that's gonna drive everything else.
And the follow-up piece too, I think that's critical. The fact that they are collecting work, studying it, and giving feedback, that's,
And that wasn't received very well by them.
I'm sure, but that's
But now
fantastic.
they love it.
Mm-hmm.
Once they start doing that. So they need feedback.
You know,
Feedback is essential.
I'm interested in seeing their iStation progress at the January meeting, just to see what that's looking like, if it's, consistent, if it's, is it happening at all the schools, at some of the schools? Just because I think, based on what they're saying, we should have already some measurable results, right?
I think, Joanne and I have been doing learning walks at the campuses, and we go to two to 4 a week, and we send it to principal walk around. And one of the things that you see is very good at every campus, and they have that data and information report.
Yes.
So students in classes are seeing it all the time.
Oh, yours,
Everybody
guys.
knows.
Students are going to mark their own progress. And
Yeah,
so
that's amazing.
a long way to it. So
Yeah.
they've also shared with us some of their challenges. that we could go
How's it going? Good to see you. All right? Yeah, how you doing? Hanging in there.
Yeah. Problem solving, right?
No, sounds like banjo.
Banjo.
I like it.
We didn't know y'all were bringing banjos. Thank y'all for
After,
waiting.
Next thing we have on the agenda is the renovation program.
Yes, sir. With us today is both the Pfluger team and the George team. Eduardo and Raphael and Carr are here with Pfluger. Michael, Mallory, James, Brad James, Cole James. They're all here with George. So, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Eduardo, who he has a PowerPoint presentation to go through. I'm handing out it's the 25th slide in the presentation, so he's going to go real fast. This is the.
You want to start off, or?
So that way y'all can see it in front of you.
Oh, you do.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes.
you, sir.
That's fine.
Eduardo's going to go fast.
Ready, set, go.
We're gonna go through all the slides and kind of just see it, and then leave time at the end when we get to the budget to cover and have questions. Go ahead, Eduardo.
All right, you bet. Hello, everybody. This is the design and pricing update for the Phase 2 Southwest High School. I just wanted to give you, this is kind of the scope of work that we've developed and established with Thomas and his team. We've kind of broken it down in these 7 categories. From first being, I guess, the first priority. The intent would be to do all of this, but the priority list is kind of listed there for you. With the Heal Suite build-out. We also have a fire alarm upgrades throughout the entire building. It's not just the 1980s building, but it would include auditorium, CTE building, and a multi-purpose building. We talked about doing an amphitheater and stage infill. That's in the mall area. That would include kind of a counseling suite and some group study rooms as part of that. We have, as another item, the main lobby, which would entail the refinishing of the floor and the ceiling and lighting. We also, there's some electrical gear replacement scope that's mentioned there. We have corridor finishes and lighting. This would primarily just be the main 1980s building, both levels, all corridors, flooring and lighting and ceiling to be replaced. We have, and then last, we have the mall itself, the cafeteria space, where it would also be the flooring, the ceiling, and lighting. Let's see here. Yeah. There we go. I'm sure you've all seen this, but this is the existing floor plan of the building proper. Here you can see the existing conditions. Here we have the proposed scope for that first level. You can kind of see the corridors that are highlighted. That would be part of this.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Second floor, again, same scope with corridors and mall. Here's kind of a zoomed in view of the Heal Suite in the amphitheater space. It's part of the mall. Here you can see the classroom, the Heal classrooms and training labs, college center. There's a community. Sorry, here, skipping ahead. There's a kind of a large lecture room to the lower right of that Heal Suite. That would be part of the Heal, but also be part of, I guess, for larger community gatherings.
Is that what the word heal means?
Health, education, and
Career technology, self-education.
We just learned that you put the words together and don't just throw out letters. You're supposed to know all the words where you can write them in sentences.
It officially stands for Health and Environmental Academy of the
Environmental Academy.
Yes, ma'am.
We've been talking about this from when we started doing phase one. This was the next step to it. We didn't have the money or time at phase one, so we did the career center area. And now we're moving into the main corridor.
This is the inside of the high school. So this is.
Where are they
So-
currently teaching the program?
So these kids are currently in a health pathway, and they currently sit, large majority of them at Southwest High School, and their students from Legacy will be coming over to Southwest High School as we're doing what STEM we're doing with this.
They are just in
A regular classroom.
All over the place?
All over?
kind of scattered throughout the building in regular classrooms, trying to make them work for right now.
And their equipment is in the individual classrooms?
Yeah, we may just have like a hospital bed.
I think we've got 4 hospital beds in one of the rooms that kind of acts as the lab.
So the way,
True environment feeling of a building.
Right.
the way this is set up is it brings all of those different teaching spaces together as a suite where they can work together. The 2 number 4s are more of a lecture format area, and they're adjacent to where those number 5s are. That's where you would have like a simulation area with hospital beds that each of those lecture areas have access to.
Like what we saw at Fox Tech?
Uh-huh. It would be right behind
Number 7 is the purple, that's where the
Careers?
FA
college,
is right now.
right.
So room 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is where we're taking all 12 of those rooms over.
So that number 2 on the screen, you're standing right in the middle of the lobby. The front office would be to your right. That's number 1.
One is number 6.
Yep. Yep. So it's like right behind those stairs.
The, is that gonna look kinda like Fox Tech, like what we saw at Fox Tech?
Yes.
We have some.
Yes?
Correct, so, but it's all gonna be in one concentrated area. We're gonna have the glass walls, kinda like we have at Legacy, where people can see into the labs, see the simulation areas, to kind of entice people to wanna be a part of that academy.
So this,
But better.
well, this is standing in the lobby now, looking at that area. There's, you know, the photographs at the top corner.
That's room, that's
This is
room
sort of what we
one.
would be creating, where you've got
Correct, yes, sir.
more glass to look
Room
into
one.
those teaching spaces. And then going on into the teaching suite. This is,
Yes, sir.
we skip right on to the number, do you want to?
But that also includes a new, that includes a new clinic and renovating the restrooms in the same level too.
Right, so I'll
Does
back,
it include the beds and all that, or no?
No, that's stuff that we'd
That's
have to
separate.
purchase.
So where's the clinic? Is the clinic gonna be where?
see the
this-
number,
Number
is
one?
there a pointer on this?
No.
Okay, so number 8,
Oh,
we
yeah.
would go ahead and build a new clinic based on the footprint that was created at Legacy to create sort of an equitable size.
Nurses clinic.
Like the actual clinic for the school. Yep, so we'd be creating a new space for them right adjacent to this. And we're also updating the college center.
Nurse Kelly is in that very back hallway,
Yeah.
in that little big tiny room. So she would, down where the number one is, she would be in a space now like similar to what Legacy has.
With an office, with beds for students who are ill, an exam room. Yep, that's, that whole yellow area where the 8 is would be a new clinic. It's all the blue, all the light blue, yep. The college center, we're updating the college center. Again, if you think about it, Legacy, where you come in past admin and it's right there on the mall, we want this space to function in the same way, so it'd be not only open to the lobby, but you could connect through to the mall through that space.
All right.
For students to work together in a group or be at a computer, you know, doing some online research. And then, as Thomas mentioned, where the 9 is, as it relates to this pod, we're also doing updates to those 2 student restrooms. So we're kind of touching that whole little unit.
So this,
So the
this
door,
whole block here where the pointer's going around, that's all the HEAL lab. Here where 8's at is where Nurse Kelly will be moving her clinic to, and then these restrooms exist, but they will be getting updated and renovated.
If you were to think back to the overall, the larger scale master plan, the idea was that along the mall, you would be creating spaces for these signature programs. So in the next phase, we would be looking at creating something for cybersecurity in the sort of, I'll call it the next pod of classrooms. It would be just above this on the screen in the layout of the school.
I was gonna ask that, the gray space between the mall and the health center, that's gray space, it's a hallway.
Yeah.
And the wall, the actual wall is right there where the end of the beige is.
So the actual wall, if I understand correctly, is right here.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yep,
That gray
that's
strip
the,
is the walkway in the mall.
It's in the, it's in
it's
the mall.
underneath the balcony of the second floor.
Yes.
Right.
So on the left-hand side of the screen, you just see the mall where there would be potentially the amphitheater seating like we have at Legacy. And we've created an office suite on the first floor that could be used as a counseling suite. That's kind of how we've programmed it. It could change over time depending on, it's the number 11. So it's where the original stage was. Most of the backstage, of course, is now the snack bar. So we'd take that space to create new seats and create an office suite underneath it with 6 offices. By the 1, we'd give them a new area that's more immediately adjacent to where the students are in the mall.
Make them accessible for the kids to move non-structured times of day, lunchtime, so they can be accessible. We would move all the counselors out there, but we would cover it.
10 would be, we're looking at the start of a new large seating area going up to the second floor.
You have it here.
And then 11 is a group of, it's 6 offices with a workspace and a conference room. So it's a little office suite.
It's not like a classroom.
Not specifically, no. it's more like student support space.
Are we still gonna keep the cafeteria or the lines back there? Those are gonna stay?
Yep.
Yes, we need to.
Yep, yeah, we're not changing the snack bar itself.
You're just taking part of the mall.
That's right.
Right. This, if you see where 2 and 3 are on here, that's now looking at the whole set of stairs that goes up over those offices. And right at the top, we had in mind to create on the second floor some glass student study rooms. Because again, you've got that, a little bit of space there that's created from where the old stage was. And then the other important thing on this is that number 3, if you think about the mall now, there's no way when you come upstairs to go directly across, to go over towards where foreign language is. We would create a new balcony so that you have balconies on all 4 sides in the mall. That's a different line item, exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
So these shots, I'll just go through these very quickly. This just gives you kind of an overview looking at, if we sort of peeled away at the school, looking at the first floor existing, that now shows you the same thing where you're seeing on the left-hand side all of that Heal Academy and the start of those stairs and that office suite. And that then looks at it from upstairs. Now you see where those stairs, that monumental stair that would seat about 250 students.
That's right.
At that end of the mall. This is just some existing photographs in the lobby and an existing rendering, and so then sort of the improvements in the lobby, you get a sense here behind the stair. I wish I had a pointer, but if you look behind the stairs, you see some of the glass that opens up into that Heal Academy, and then we're proposing a new ceiling treatment here when we go back in and replace the floors and the ceiling.
The open,
It's
the legacies, open ceiling?
Yeah, I think we really,
The baffles that hang down, that you see hanging, are made from Tectum, which is a sound absorbing
Right.
material. Those baffles that hang down, we don't have that.
Not like this.
The legacy, most of the open areas have acoustic deck that support the sound.
And this is different because it's an existing metal deck, so we're putting those baffles in, and that helps diffuse the sound.
Sure.
The rationale for it is the existing skylights that are above the lobby. We'd like to try to bring in more natural daylight, and the flat ceiling really limits the amount. What ends up happening is that there's a lot of daylight in the interstitial space between the ceiling and the roof, and we're trying to bring more of that daylight down. The photograph on the top left is showing you how much daylight there is. The bottom of that is actually the top of the ceiling tiles. And so you're losing a lot of sunlight because of that flat ceiling. So that's why we're looking at trying to open up that space.
So we're gonna capture that with those,
Right.
with that
'Cause
design.
now you're open to that area, but those baffles that run like this help catch more of that noise. So I showed you this a minute ago. That's in the lobby, looking at the corner where the Heal Academy would be. And that's, I'll call it the after. On the far left, where you see the doors going into the mall, you also see new glass doors looking into the college center. So that college center is also more visible from the lobby.
So all of that's in the mall?
All of that's still in the lobby.
In the lobby.
Okay, I'm looking at it wrong.
We're way over on the far left side of this image is the top of the stairs, the lobby stairs that go up to the second floor.
Yeah, okay.
We're kind of standing right behind those stairs,
Got it.
looking at the wall where the edge of the college center is. Now we'll go forward. So this is a, wrong way. This is inside the new Heal teaching spaces that we would be creating, the renovated spaces. On the right-hand side is the lecture area. On the left, you're looking at one of the individual patient beds.
Well, we did it inside, we renovated the inside, we tile, ceiling grid, painted the walls, upgraded some of the shops with paint. So that's, our biggest part of that area was the Cosmo Lab, expanding that. Correct.
Is that
And
the
they're shot.
This is
Sorry?
next, yes. Correct. We're actually, on that list was Cosmo, the Hill Academy, Law Academy, and then Cyber Patriots. And so we're trying to phase it out. So, and our next phase would be Cyber and Law, the Law Academy, upgrading some rooms to make it look more like.
I'm just curious.
Thank you.
This-
Is this like, we have more kids involved in the field than we do in the cyber and what was the other one?
Law
Law.
Academy.
This is a bigger number of kids?
So the answer is yes. If you take out the IT part, because that was never part of the original design way back when we were designing Legacy. But Cyber Patriot, right, that's kind of it's been a program that's grown because of the kid growth. And we don't, there doesn't need to be a restructure around that, but with perspective to the Health Academy piece, there are some things that need to happen structurally with our building if we really want to provide an adequate environment for our kids. In the law portion, there doesn't need to be, eventually down the road, we would like to have a building that looks like a court setting and things like that. But for the purposes of getting that program up and going, we pretty much have it going at both campuses right now. So, but what we don't have is a really robust environment for the Health Academy kids, and we have almost 600 and something kids that are interested in that pathway.
Okay. So we have 620
I believe, we ran numbers yesterday, I believe at Southwest High School, it's like 194 kids. At Legacy, it's under like 60 that are in the IT environment.
Okay.
And so definitely a program.
Well, when we go into the next phase, which would require us probably most likely go out for another bond in the near future, that would be part of the next phase of Southwest High School. Because there's going to be more, because there's a lot of things, even on the infrastructure side, that we're not going to be able to touch, like HVACs, that we need to come back later and do in the next phase.
How
So
many
phase
phases do you think we're gonna end up needing?
Well, I think in the near, in the next 10 years, another phase probably.
Just one more?
One more, and then after that it'll be, because right now, we still have some infrastructure things that we'll need to deal with in phase 3, but then also with these two other programs, getting those upgraded, so that's kind of where.
This kind of stays in line with our pre-bond activity that we put together, getting the laws. And when we came out, we decided we put this focus of STEM at the new high school, the focus of Health Academy law at the existing high school. So it's kind of staying in line with what we presented to the growth and planning committee throughout the year prior to the bond and after the bond. And the fact that more students in the country, I think it's a great question. But, you know, this is still work that we started in 2010 that we're still kind of building on.
And on the design,
Classrooms are we looking at when we look at this picture right here?
uh-huh,
How many classrooms did that take?
how many classrooms did it take up?
Yes.
Is it 12?
No, I'm talking about just the picture we're looking at right there.
Oh, you're looking at, right now you're looking at one teaching space with its own lab, and then you're looking at a corridor that goes through to a mirror image teaching space.
That's right.
10 rooms go away and you get 3 lecture halls and then all the labs go away.
And the clinic.
And the clinic.
Yeah, we have lots of capacity in Southwest High School. Due that we moved a lot of students out of there now.
Right.
So we have a lot of room so that the great environment.
Is that classroom house more than a typical classroom? Like
This-
you can do 40 or 50 kids as opposed to 20 to 25?
The seminar room would hold a larger number. This would be designed more for about 24 students, but
Okay,
you have to keep in mind, because of, they're starting in a lecture format, and then they're going over to work in small groups with a mannequin, you know, they're doing something. So you don't really want to get too large of a group.
Right.
I would guess at the upper level, you're probably going to have fewer numbers than 24 typically.
Do you have a schematic of the lecture, like the big?
I don't know, do you have renderings in here
I
for the
don't have a
lecture?
rendering of the
I don't think we
lecture
put
hall
one
itself.
in this presentation to show that space.
But the plan does show the
Yeah.
desk arrangements, yeah.
This is looking at actually the other teaching space, which matches in terms of its scope, just standing on the other side. Again, looking back towards where the lab setup is with the hospital beds. This is the side corridor where we're updating the restrooms.
All of those large structures, they exist, you just don't see them because the ceiling cover.
So
It's all existing structure there.
And again, we're wanting to open more of this up to allow more light to come through from those existing skylights.
Will we have an opportunity to visit some places that are comparable to that, so we can get an idea of kind of, are we going to increase noise? What we noticed at Legacy and Resnick is huge noise issues in the corridors during capacity periods, things that we're not used to, we didn't anticipate. And so we're trying to mitigate some of that now, and going back to indoor, so we don't have noise. Will we have an opportunity to go someplace that may be very comparable to what we're going to do during the year, maybe see what it sounds like in there? Is there any place that you guys can think of like that?
Well, I mean, off the top of my head, I would say the mall is so unique because of its size. I can't think of another school that has as large of a room as what the mall is. I think what we might do is talk to BAI. I think we should talk to BAI about helping us do an assessment on what we would be doing acoustically with this.
Correct. And I think acoustically, I mean, from an acoustical standpoint, from a surface area of acoustical treatment, we obviously be removing the tile grid that's in there now, but we would be replacing pretty much with more acoustical tile, but now you just have exposed structure.
Okay.
So.
Higher up? It's just
It'd
gonna
just
be
be
higher up?
higher up. So it's just the amount of acoustical treatment is probably more or less the same. It's just treated a lot differently.
But we could have an acoustician do a study, if you will, based on the design, and they could compare it to sort of the existing calculated noise level in the space. That might be the easiest way to approach it, I think.
And we're looking at a lot of lighting, is there a lot?
Yeah, we would be doing all lighting upgrades as well in the space.
I mean, I'm sorry, natural light.
From the skylights that are there.
About half of the mall has skylights, the other half does not. So we treating the ceiling like this throughout the entire mall. We're similar to what we did in the lobby, where we're just opening it up to those skylights.
And you're not gonna add any more skylights, you're just gonna expose the ones that are already there?
Right, right. We just don't want to make any new roof penetrations.
Right, it would be
We don't have to.
a big deal.
Yeah. This is looking at that same space, but now standing back towards the serving lines and now looking at it straight on. So this shows you more of that ceiling scape that would change, where we would be exposing those existing trusses. You also see that the new second level walkway that now would connect across at the front of the room.
I do not have I would be telling the story if I told you. You can ask him. We can definitely do that, get at least a survey and see how they're being used, what classrooms, and I'm sure they have that. I haven't asked, I don't know if anybody's asked.
The kids are allowed to use it informally though?
Yes.
Like during lunches and stuff?
Correct.
Okay. I wonder if they're going there. Yeah. I was just gonna say, let's go have lunch there.
Well, I kind of have a similar question about exposing the ceiling, which I guess there's some cost, but not a lot of cost to take out the old ceiling. But then you put in the baffles and other things in there. I don't particularly like open ceilings. I know we're doing it for, and I know that's modern, everybody likes that, but I'm really old, and so I kind of like having a ceiling. But I'm wondering if it's worth all of that, if you get that much more lighting, if it really makes a difference. Follow me?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we ought to be doing this just because that's the modern way to do things, but maybe it is. I mean, maybe we'd want to look modern. That's what
I
you
want
do.
to, I want to say something because
Go ahead.
I graduated from that building.
Yeah.
And having been a student in that building, the lack of natural lighting is critical.
Well, that would be-
It's like a
that's-
tomb. There's no
Yeah,
windows,
that's a
there's
great-
no,
Right, that was how this started.
and, it's just so claustrophobic and it's more modern now to use the natural light and all that good stuff. I think that's a great progress.
Well,
for
natural
the-
lighting would be a good reason to do it,
Yeah,
but just to do it to
Makes a
be
difference.
modern, I don't know, but
yeah,
if
no.
you really, but you say only half of it is natural lighting.
Well, just based on where the existing skylights are within the space. They,
What it was, is the original design, that was the theater.
that's what I was gonna say.
So during, they were trying to put
Yeah.
natural light into the cafeteria portion of the mall,
Oh.
not into the theater.
Yeah.
So that's why they're only on one half.
Yeah.
I know part of our conversation going through the process of this journey was really the whole issue of equity. We have a new high school.
You're right.
So we have this equity capacity. How do we create kind of similar kind of environments? And so we're really going for the whole aesthetic piece on this.
Yeah.
With some infrastructure.
Well, you wanted to give it a new look. We talked about that.
We want people to see what it's like.
Yeah.
Well, and I think I envy the amount of light that Legacy has. It's all the windows and all the natural light, and I know that, we can't achieve that in such an old building, but every little bit helps.
Mhm, mhm. So, it's difficult to read here, but I know you have a handout. Going back to how Eduardo started, within all of the work we're trying to do right now, our task was really to look at what could be accomplished within the remaining bond dollars, as opposed to be deferred towards some future initiative. And that's a part of why, even in this scope, we're not looking at Cyber Patriots or law or anything else. So we've already sort of tried to bring focus to these items, and within these items, we've categorized them because this number of 12.7, 12.8 exceeds what's available within the remaining bond funds.
About 9.2. So we have about 9.2 million in bond funds left for this project. Because we've done phase one, and so we spent almost 3 million in the first phase, and so the overall budget was 12.5. And so we've kind of got to a point now where we're at 9.2, and that's why you see the kind of the list and how they're packaged. And really, that's kind of how we want to price them out.
Yeah.
And see where they land, and then come back and share with the board where we are. We did this kind of similar with Big Country and Indian Creek, where we got pricing and we had some alternatives, and then we were able to make decisions.
So we need 3.5.
Correct.
Okay.
If we wanted to do all,
Everything.
it would be another 3.5, and that would come from fund balance.
It's what we're suggesting to you as a priority, but obviously we want to be sensitive to your feedback if it should be reprioritized. So,
Correct.
It's our recommendation of a priority, but we're also open to the board's desire to make recommendations and guys make decisions.
How did the price, if we wanted to do the walk over and then those offices here, but we didn't want to do the amphitheater, just ballpark,
I'd be hard to peel out, that's about 1.3, and I'm not sure that I would ask you all. I mean, we'd have to try to figure out how to divvy up those numbers. Part of that office suite, though, takes into account the space that's created underneath the stairs.
You'd only
So,
get the top ones.
Right, that's what I'm
Without the
saying.
seating, you wouldn't have
Right,
anything.
what if we only get the top ones, like the walk over?
I mean, I don't
We
know
have
if
to
there'd be
look
a
at
way
it.
to look at.
I'd just like to know what the number is.
You'd still be paying for a lot of the structural
Right.
to create the balcony itself, but without the stair.
I'd say probably 500 or 600 grand.
Savings.
Half.
I don't know if Joanne can speak, I know at the high school, there's not a lot of places to meet with 100, 200 students.
Right.
You have the auditorium, that's more of a formal place, and it's a ease of use, basically. I understand it could be a cost savings, but I think that it could also be a aesthetically really pleasing, do something for your employees in the language you do.
I'm just saying, if we're getting a lot of cuts, then we should have an idea going into it. If, oh, we're gonna cut this, we're gonna save this, you know, that way we're not done trying to say, yeah, cut it out all together, and then it really only costs $200,000, and you're like, well, why did I get that?
Right.
So where do teachers go right now if they need to get 200 to 300 kids together? What do they do?
Sit, usually when kids want to sit for lunch, they come to the area.
So they just sit at the tables and stuff?
Yeah, and we'll move the chairs up to the faculty meeting up into right in front of the older stage right now.
Yeah.
The student chairs are under the circular area. I think the gym for a lot of times is practice going on.
It's very, first, the competition gym is very limited because you want to make sure that the upkeep of that facility is competition ready for, our outsiders coming in. And the two practice gyms, the one is you couldn't sit anybody in there because there's no seating. And the other one, it's very limited and it's kind of it's a length-based approach, I can only speak to the value of what it would have been to be able to speak to a group of 100 students, because I wanted to as a principal, and I didn't have to coordinate between the gym coordinator and the auditorium coordinators or any of that. And then the other thing is when we do bring in like a guest lecturer, maybe to bio environment, is that we'd have to do that in the cafeteria, which is not conducive to any type of lecture type hall setting. And so with that advantage, having that in our cafeteria area, it just really helps support the work of campus leadership when you're trying to do small group interventions with attendance. And, there's just lots of things that you can do that if you don't have a setting like that, it's a kind of flat baseline. Kids can't see you, you're talking over them, or you're competing trying to get into one of the gyms or the auditorium. And in the auditorium, we have classes shared between all the fine arts programs. So it's not like that facility is just open whenever we want it to be. And the other thing there is we really want to make sure that our auditorium is well taken care of.
Yeah.
And so that when we do bring in for our fine arts productions, that it's a worthy event for our community to go into.
So as it relates to what Dr. Fay was saying, that's part of why when you look at the way these items are divvied up, we thought about that seating piece and the balcony as being something distinct from the rest of the ceiling work and the floor work in the mall. That's why that's lowest on the list. So from a recommendation point of view, if we're looking at these numbers and it is in fact a hard bid of 12.7, and we only have 9, we're thinking we would probably still try to do that, because even though it's not classroom space, it's still related to an academic need, but we might not do more of the finish work in the rest of the mall. That could be put off. And so that kind of gets back to if there's an aesthetic, we know the daylight is a need, but otherwise we're just trying to bring the room updated, and that's not serving quite the same need. So that's part of why these priorities have been arranged this way.
I have a comment and a question.
Can't see the natural light.
I think this is very good. I like it. I don't know what we'll take or what we won't take, but it does look very good. You've done a very nice job. You always do. But I do kind of want to make a point. And we as a board have had a lot of discussion here recently over the unintended consequences of value engineering when your estimated cost exceeds your conceptual cost. And so we wouldn't have that if the conceptual cost was better. And so I really hope that y'all can really try to pinpoint what this is going to cost us, so that we don't have to get into the value engineering to try to build the thing.
Right. Well, and I think that's one of the benefits. That's part of why one of the last times I was here, we talked with you all about bringing a construction manager on board, so that it wasn't something we were strictly estimating from the design side. So we have the benefit of having the contractor involved now. Roughly speaking, with our schedule, we're looking at updating this estimate with our scope in another, I'll say, 5 weeks from now, while we're still within the design phase. So there'd be one more round of estimating, so that we're finishing drawings based on this scope probably in February, and kind of doing another benchmark along the way.
To your point, Keith, we've already started the process of VEing some things. I can tell you the last item on here, I think was at, the 3.6, item number 7. It was actually 3.4. We kind of took the pause off that second, really nice area for students to kind of informally gather in their charging station up on the second floor. We kind of have these cut out. So we kind of removed that from the picture. That was nice.
Yeah.
Really add aesthetic to the building.
Yeah.
Just didn't seem feasible at that point. So we would take that off there. So we're already starting that process about how can we take things off.
Yeah. And I think that's real important. I just don't want this to be like we were last time. At the very end, all of a sudden, we can't build it because we don't have enough money, so then we go into that value engineering, and there's always unintended consequences that result from that.
Well, and with what the superintendent was just describing, we're not showing that to you today, but it's not like we're doing something that prevents that from being done in the future. We're putting that off, if you will, to a future phase, future opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so our plan is, this is gonna be our plan moving forward here, and as we keep going back to pricing and then when we get to the point where it actually gets graded out, I mean, these are the things that we're gonna present to you guys, and then it's the decision-making time, whether we're gonna go all the way in or we're gonna put that off the phase 3.
Carr, that new polished concrete flooring, is that the same as what we have at Legacy?
It's not going to be exactly the same, because of course Legacy is newly built.
Okay.
So here what we're doing is refinishing the existing floor, where you have that mix of the saltillo tile and the concrete that has that exposed aggregate. What we want to try to do is replicate a much easier to maintain sort of uniform finish. So it's probably going to involve busting out the saltillo tile and then coming back in with a topping, because the result would be unlevel.
So it's gonna look like just concrete,
It's going to look like just concrete.
which I just wanted to point that out to you.
Yes? There is a cost for that. Okay.
That was a big surprise, I guess, at Legacy for us.
Okay.
As a board, that floor.
Okay. Well, we'll look at it, and then you can kind of see what that means in terms of cost.
Right. And, well, that's on the bottom of the priority list anyway, so.
Right.
So at this point, you go out and get some real pricing, working with Joris, and we come back with kind of clear numbers.
Right.
And really make some decisions. And I think that'd be a good idea, direct what I was asking for. I think it's a really great idea to show when we're taking things off and how we get down to 3.4 to 2.8. So we can bring that at that time. At that point, we need to make some decisions, because we knew when we did the 2 elementaries, we kind of went over budget right at the tune of $1 million each. And so we wanted to kind of we figured we're going to go over. And I know back in the day when we first started this, we anticipated about $5 million that we probably had to add to this. But now we moved to a whole new phase, a whole phase 3 in the future, that we're going to add some things back on, or try to at least. So we wanted to keep it palatable around 3.5 and say this is coming. Our wish list can't go over $3.5 million beyond what we think we have for construction, and then we'll kind of work back from there. And so I think right now, I think moving forward with this, we have a recommended prioritized list. Next
we will bring back real numbers to you guys, and we start making some decisions about what we change, what we take off, what we, if we leave the floor like the floors are, what cost savings is that, and we get those critical conversations.
It's the same as the mall. It's that mix of,
And the pebbles, like the,
Yeah.
right?
yeah. Well, that's why you see so much wax on it that's built up over time. It's just really hard to keep that polished because it's so uneven.
In some cases, the wax wouldn't help.
So we'd probably, I think we will be back with those numbers in March.
Would that be a recommendation numbers where we're making decisions? and-
Once we've actually put together bid documents and Joris has bid it, it's either going to be March or April,
And we're looking to start the project.
summer. Well, we can talk about schedule. Roughly speaking, the schedule, we're looking at it in pieces. So while this is prioritized right now in terms of cost, there's also different ways we need to do the work in pieces because it's an active high school. So really, our time frame is to start this summer. Some work will go on into the school year, and then we would wrap things up the following summer. So it encompasses both summers that are pretty intense and some work during the school year, but we're going to be very specific about where we can be in the school because it's ongoing. Thanks for letting us dive into all of this today. We just want to be sure you see what we're doing.
I think we'll ask Brandon and Thomas to do it at the next brown bag, in every brown bag, this spring. Maybe we'll bring back the original plan and show that one section.
Okay, we'll bring that back. And we can certainly bring back images of that lecture, the classroom that's more of a lecture space, you see that
Maybe
too.
we can do a kind of a, for the board to kind of walk through so you can see the actual before.
Oh, that'd be great.
I think it's just, you've done it with us before, and it means a lot when you actually are looking at it.
Right.
Maybe do kind of a pre-construction walkthrough.
Okay.
Or what we make decisions on.
Right, right. That'd be perfect for the next couple of months if y'all have time. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, Mr. President, I'd like to make a recommendation that we table item D, special enrollment presentation. It's something that it's not critical, something that we can present in January.
How about executive session? Have anything? Does anybody have anything before we shut her down?
We have a reminder to the board, central office Christmas luncheon will be Wednesday, December 20th. It's going to be at the Annex Gym.
Yes.
Over there, the old building 800. The old pine tree, right? Yeah, the old pine tree.
Cafeteria or the
We
gym?
gotta start talking in English rather than numbers.
Well, you invented
It was
those.
that building 800 cafeteria. 11:30 in West Henry, my brother.
It's in your calendar, huh? Oh, you won't. That's right, I forgot.
Oh, yes.
Ooh, I'm
For the
jelly.
plan?
Yes.
December 22nd,
Our
which is a Friday. It's the day we get off for the break, early release day. And the next board meeting is going to be Tuesday, January 16th, 2018. And just another reminder, the meeting for our board tomorrow is on Wednesday through the weekend. Then the next board meeting will be in January. Alice,
You just saw it, last week.
We're trying to motivate y'all.
On behalf of the school district to run,
I think you're telling them right now, so.
Yeah.
We look forward to the opportunity to keep learning.
It's a great website, that's what. It's been very compressed.
anything else? Jesse, you here for your good looks, or you wanna say something?
Very hard.
You had the best presentation.
All right, we're adjourned at 1:00.